Even though tragic consequences resulted from the actions, the Boston Tea Party of 1773 is considered a triumph that energized the American Revolution, setting in motion American values of independence, courage, and freedom. Britain once had complete control over the colonies. Many acts were passed that imposed taxes, which began to outrage the colonists. Acts that affected the colonists' everyday life included the Currency Act of 1764, which made all the colonists' money worthless, the Sugar Act of 1764, which made common products more expensive, the Stamp Act of 1765, which made it so that every official paper needed a stamp, and the Quartering Act of 1765, which required colonists to provide barracks for British soldiers. Some colonists, known as the Patriots, believed that the taxes were not fair as they had no say in what was imposed on them. The Patriots began having protests and boycotting products from Britain, instead making them or smuggling them from other places. Shown here is a British picture mocking ladies in North Carolina for vowing not to drink British tea. The longer the taxes stayed in play, the more enraged the Patriots got. No taxation without representation became the Patriots' motto. Although taxes were quickly repealed, tensions continued, and soon more problems were to come. British soldiers were sent to the colonies to restore order. Approximately 2,000 British troops were sent to Boston, as the city was considered one of the centers of the rebellion. Samuel Adams, a patriot from Boston, wrote letters asking the 13 colonies to join him in Massachusetts and stand up for their rights to trade freely and not be taxed unfairly. As one example, he wrote, "The country shall be independent, and we shall be satisfied with nothing short of it." On the other side was the Loyalists, who agreed with the king and paid the taxes. Many Loyalists believed that the Patriots were looking for a fight and caused their misfortune, creating tension between the groups. In this picture, Patriots and Loyalists are shown fighting, with a Loyalist being physically harassed for his viewpoint. Tensions continued to increase, and in 1770, a tragic event occurred. On a fateful afternoon of March 5th, 1770, a jeering crowd was yelling and mocking a British soldier. The situation continued to escalate, and confusion about what was happening occurred. The British soldiers fired, and 5 colonists were killed. This event became known as the Boston Massacre, and it was used as an opportunity for the Patriots to fuel anger towards the British. This picture by Paul Revere was widely distributed as patriotic propaganda. In 1773, the tea tax was brought upon the colonists, but some refused to pay. The British made a deal with the East India Tea Company to allow them to sell tea at a cheaper price with taxes than tea that was being smuggled illegally into the colonies. Tea was brought from China and India to Britain without having to pay duties, and then was shipped to the colonies. When it arrived, the colonists were to pay the taxes. The tax for the colonists was 4 pence per pound, which is about 95 cents in today's US dollars. Shown here is a picture of Lord North shoving tax tea down the throat of the colonists. Although some colonists stopped rebelling, Patriots emphasized that if they gave in and accepted the tax, the British could raise and lower it at will. That is, tax without representation. The East India Tea Company had handpicked merchants to sell their tea, and the Patriots knew that if any of those merchants accepted the tea and paid the tax, the entire protest would fail. The Sons of Liberty were a secretive section of the Patriots that worked to pressure the merchants to resign, sending threatening letters and planning protests. Many merchants quit their jobs under the pressure, but a few refused. One example was Thomas Hutchinson, governor of Massachusetts, who had 2 sons who served as these tea merchants. The Patriots demanded that they meet a mob under the Liberty Tree and resign their positions, but none of the merchants showed up. In 1773, 3 tea ships arrived from Britain to the Boston Harbor between the end of November and mid-December. The ships included the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver. When the tea was unloaded, the colonists were supposed to pay the tax, but they refused. The Sons of Liberty posted signs to protest the arrival of the ships, and rallied to bring together the colonists to meet about the problem. Many secret and public meetings were held, but no decision was made about what to do. Requests to send the tea back were denied, and the Patriots refused to let the tea be unloaded. On December 16th, a meeting was held in the Old South Meeting House. The Old South Meeting House was used because it was the biggest building in the area, and the only one that was close to fitting the crowd of 5,000 people. The meeting began in the morning, and debates continued throughout the day about what to do with the tea. Many positions were debated. If the tea was allowed to come on land, the tax would have to be paid. Some argued that the ships should be sent back, but the king refused to allow the ships to return without the tax being paid. Mr. Roch, the owner of the ship the Dartmouth, attended the meetings. Mr. Roch agreed with the Patriots, and he said that he would not unload the cargo unless he was asked to by the proper personnel. Yet he was also stuck, because his ship and cargo would be seized if he left without unloading the tea and collecting the tax. He was asked to ride to the governor's house for a meeting to request that he could go back to England without paying the tax. Mr. Roch returned to the Old South Meeting House to report that the governor refused the request. Discussions continued, and eventually, the Sons of Liberty decided on a secret plan. The Sons of Liberty decided to go to the dock where the ships were waiting, board the ships, and dump the tea into the harbor. "Rally the Mohawks, and Boston Harbor a teapot tonight," could be heard throughout the crowd of the Old South Meeting House to the dock. The Sons of Liberty appeared dressed as Native Americans so that they would not be recognized, and fell silent before reaching the dock so that they could not draw any attention. Before boarding the Beaver, the men were asked by the captain to not damage the ship, rigging, or other cargo. The men obliged. Altogether, 342 chests of tea were dumped into the harbor, about $2 million in current U.S. currency. In 1774, the Empire struck back with a chorus of acts, known to the colonists as the Intolerable Acts. King George III was furious about the Boston Tea Party. Boston needed to pay for what happened and should be used as an example. The Intolerable Acts were sent as punishments, and included closing the Boston Harbor for trade until tea and taxes were paid. Closing the port made it very difficult for Boston's economy. The acts also included taking away the freedom of Massachusetts to govern itself, with the king taking control. In addition, British troops were sent to occupy Boston, and colonists were required to house troops in their home. This is called the revised version of the Quartering Act. This picture shows the colonists in a cage getting fed by spoons. It represents how the colonists felt under the Intolerable Acts, with limits on trade, difficulty finding basic needs, and surrounded by soldiers. Some colonists even moved away from Boston due to the harsh consequences. The Intolerable Acts did not work as hoped, instead fueling a patriotic spirit. The other colonies sent aid to Massachusetts, boycotting trade with Britain, and began to stock weapons and build armies. Tensions exploded in 1775. In April of 1775, less than 2 years following the Boston Tea Party, the Revolutionary War began. First with the standoff and gunfire on Lexington Green, followed by the Battle of Concord. The Revolutionary War continued for more than 7 years, until victory was established in the Treaty of Paris. A new, independent nation was formed, the United States of America. The Boston Tea Party was the push that sent the colonies to the tipping point of both a tragic and triumphant war. We cannot celebrate the victory of a new independent nation without remembering the thousands of lives lost in this war. We must remember the sacrifices of these men and continue to fight for each person's right for representation.